Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Monthly Meetup with my good friend Onita Simpson. I am one of your hosts, Dwayne Dwyer, and obviously that is Miss Onita Simpson, and we just want to extend a warm welcome and an early Thanksgiving to everybody out there who's actually listening. So again, Anita, welcome. How have you been? Can you hear me?
Fantastic. It's
There,
almost
there you
time
go.
to eat and have the excuse to eat as much as you want. So
There you go. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm
excited. How
excited.
about you?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the fellowship. I'm looking forward to the good food, and obviously, I'm looking forward to the sleep that's going to happen in the midst of looking at some great football as well. So I'm actually looking forward to it. Um, to everybody who's actually out there in the listening audience, again, welcome to the show. We just want to welcome each and every one of you. As always, we love when you guys get in the chats and give your opinions, give your thoughts, and also your thought provoking questions because we want to make sure that we honor those questions in the midst of our conversation. So, again, welcome. We know that you could be doing anything else this morning, but you decided to take some time out and spend some time with us, and we do not take that lightly. So, thank you for being in attendance. And again, just welcome to the show. Miss Simpson, I'm just going to say this because this is you. You started this right here. I just want you to know that. This particular conversation, I think, is going to be very, very good. I mean, it's no different than our previous conversations, right? I think she kind of froze a little bit. Anita, can you hear me?
Right. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you. You kind of
Can you
faint,
hear
but
me?
yes, I got you now. There you go.
Um,
All right, can you hear me?
eh,
Yep.
I don't know what's going on. You know what? Because we're getting to have a great conversation.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. So today's conversation um, is how does your self value affect the way that you value others? And again, like I said, I think this is going to be interesting. It's going to be intriguing, and I think it's going to be something. I think it's going to be something that you're going to find that may challenge your perspective, and that's okay. I want to make sure that you understand that when we talk about these things, we're going to talk about it from a general perspective, and this is not an attack on one individual person at all. Again, welcome Michelle Ray, welcome Cassandra, welcome Uncle Junior from the Uncle Junior Network. Um, and somebody said that you have Tawami Gaddy's internet provider. That's Roland. Roland said you got Tawami Gaddy's internet provider. So he's he's a card. And that goes back to our conversation we had a few
Hilarious.
weeks ago. Right. A few weeks ago, Tawami had some issues with his internet. So let's kind of get into this real quick. Again, the conversation is how does your self value affect the way that you value others? And as always, I love to baseline understanding by giving a definition. Like one of the things that we understood is that we can search for self value, pretty much until the end to the end of the internet, but you're not really going to find a whole lot on self value, but you will find self worth. And self worth equates to our evaluation of ourself as being a worthwhile person. Now, I have a couple of words here in capitalized for a reason because what I want people to understand evaluation requires some sort of metric. That's number one. And then number two, the concept of worthwhile, I think we can all conclude that it is fluid from person to person. So I think when we look at this definition alone, I think we can understand how this starts to set the condition to my AOL. Stop it, man. I think we can understand how this sets the condition for some challenging from for some challenges that exist within in our lives. So as we move forward, I want to start off with the importance of understanding your self value. So Anita, if you don't mind, please, would you mind just giving us your thoughts behind the importance of understanding your self value?
So the importance of understanding in a childhood, parents are putting into you, your family members are putting into you, what you're exposed to. And if you don't know who you are at your core, how do you know what you like? How do you know what you'll accept from others? How do you even know how to treat others if you don't even understand the importance of how to treat yourself? So who you are at your core and knowing that you are loved, not just by your parents, but from the one who loved, which we know his name is God. Knowing that, understanding that your value comes from because we are made in his likeness and image, you're going to to love in the
Yeah, I think you're right. And just to kind of rehash what you're saying, I think one of the key points that you brought out is that pretty much value is pretty much instilled in you from a early stage in your life. And if you do not necessarily understand your value and where your value comes from, then it's going to be very difficult for you to kind of, project your value or understand when you are being valued and things of that nature. So I think that's important. Um, and again, in the chat, please, if you don't mind, give your interpretations or your understanding to these questions of what, as well, because I think this is important as we're going forward. I want to kind of caveat off of what she is saying because I think she's correct. One of the things that we understand about the concept of value is we pretty much understand, from a general perspective. And I like to go back to real estate because this kind of makes sense. Um, I like to go back to say that in essence, when it comes down to a home, we view the value of a home based upon what a person is willing to pay for it. But is that the true authentic value of that home? Or is that just, their perception of the value? So what I like to start off with is that value can be understood from three perspectives. You have assigned, you have realized, and you also have express value. So the assigned value will always, always, always come from the creator of the thing. So in the concept of real estate, whoever develops the house assigns the value of the house. We also have to conclude that pretty much they will develop that house within a neighborhood that supports the value that they assign to it. So value is first assigned. Value is then realized when said owner understand the intent behind the creator when they develop the thing. This really goes back to exactly what she said. We're made in his image and in his likeness, right? So now we understand that value is also assigned, right? And then it's realized by the developer. So you as a person, you realize your value when you understand the creator's intent when he created you. So with that being said, that makes sense as far as value is concerned. And then once you realize the value that the creator has placed in you, now that takes you to expressed value. You cannot express a thing about yourself that you do not understand. So when we go back to the importance of understanding your self value, you must first understand what the creator meant when he created you. What value did he place in you from the onset, in the beginning? Then you have to come to the progressive awareness of what your value system looks like. Then from there, you can express your value within your environment. So I think you're spot on with that because if we do not go back to our creator, the originator of who we are, then we will never get to the point of understanding our value. So that's just kind of like my thoughts on it. Um, are you good to go now?
I think I am.
Yes.
So it should not be on AOL or Twame's, Hopefully I'm moving correctly. I'm not moving like a robot. I just
Yep.
went ahead and switched devices.
It is perfect. Whatever you did, it was perfect. So thank you. We greatly appreciate being able to hear and see you now.
Yes.
So yeah, it was I think you're and I want to make sure I give room for you to go back and say what you said originally, because I think some parts of it was missed. So if you please don't mind, please share that again, please.
Absolutely. So I was saying that the importance of understanding your self value, it centers around who you are, who you were taught, or what you were taught as a child, knowing that you were made in God's image and his likeness. So if you know who you are at your core, then you know how to love other people with that same value that that's been put into you. Something that you know, not the society telling you, okay, this is what you should be. This is who you should be. No, we might live in the society, but we're children of the kingdom. So if we're children of the kingdom, we carry ourselves a different way. And that's the importance of knowing who you are at your core, in your heart. And as you grow, your heart's growing. You know who you are. You know what you're willing to tolerate, what you're not willing to tolerate. And if you know who you are, you won't settle for just anything from anybody else.
See, I love what you said just now, because I love the fact that you brought society and what their interpretation of your value is. And again, I want to link them together, because society was not is not your creator. So they have
Right.
no earthly idea what your value is. And a lot of times what we'll find is that when a person does not understand the thing, they will place their understanding on the thing and then hold you accountable for their understanding of your value, not necessarily your intrinsic or extrinsic value, which was created by the creator himself. So I'm glad you
Yes.
brought that to the conversation, because I think that's what happens a lot. We see the best version of somebody's life on social media, on commercials, and out in public. And we be like, oh, well, I want that. I want to do this. I want to
Mm-hmm.
be that. I should be treated like this. And I should be, and all of that is just, in my opinion, smoke and mirrors. None of that matters, because you're not seeing the entirety of the picture. You're only seeing sound bites, snippets of what a person is showing you, and you're taking the highlight reels of a person's life and looking at your entire life, and then you're going through some type of cognitive dissonance because you're not being there. So I think that's important to understand.
And it can be triggering. Looking at everybody's highlight reels, like, oh, their life is so perfect. Why am I not as far ahead as they are? But like you said, they're showing you what they want you to see. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So I was finding myself years ago looking at people's highlight reels and questioning, I'm not moving fast enough. I'm not far enough in life. And then that's when the Lord had to sit me down and say, no, your value doesn't come from what they're posting. It doesn't come from what society says that you should be. It comes from me. I am your center. And remember that.
You know what? You started it. I told you. So, as you were just saying, the origin of our self value. Please continue, because I think this I think this is important to understand, right? And I go back to the beginning where I said that value is assigned, realized, and also expressed. So if we understand the assigned value, then at that point, that's when we realize it and we can express it. So based upon, and I want to kind of like do a little bit of reflection here. I love doing this. So when did you get to the point of understanding where your value came from?
I'm 41 and I don't mind saying that. Um, but I did not really understand until I was 34, 35, because growing up, I didn't have a relationship with the Lord. It was a now lay me down to sleep. That was it. But it took for me to go through some things in my adulthood to realize, like, wait, God is really real. I really do want to have fellowship and relationship with Him. And as I'm, learning more, reading more, and I'm looking like, oh, it says that I'm all these things, not where I came from, not how I was treated. So if I'm all these things, I have to unlearn what society said I was. I have to unlearn the trauma that I went through in order to receive the true blessings, and that was knowing where I came from, knowing that I have a Father in heaven who sent me here with a purpose and a plan. And that part in itself, if that don't give you value to know, like, wow, I was chosen to go and and encourage others and speak life into other people. That he chose you, not saying that he didn't choose a lot of us, but to know personally that even if I was the only one in the world, he would still do it. That in itself gave me so much more love for myself.
Mm,
There are things that I just stopped tolerating because I knew I didn't have to. I didn't have to look at myself as the underdog when he said I'm the head and not the tail. I'm above and not beneath. So just knowing that in itself, my value and how I looked at myself, it grew from that standpoint. And then it's been, ain't no turning back since then. Nobody's gonna tell me that I'm not a child of the most high God. You just not you can say it, but I'm not gonna believe that.
right. And see, I love the fact that you said that. I love the fact that you were number one transparent by saying it didn't happen back when I was 15, 16 years old. It happened when I was 41 years old. And I'm sorry, you said 30, 34,
35, about
35. Okay.
34, 35.
I apologize. It happened when I was about 34, 35 years old. And I think for the most part, that's when the transition of understanding begins for most people. I think mine happened right around that same time frame as well. I can't narrow it down specifically to that. But what I can say is that it was right around that time frame where I got to the point of expressing the desire and love that I actually had a huge amount of curiosity about earlier. The issue is that back then, instead of looking for it in him, I look for it in people. I look for it
Hmm.
in people to define my self value. In fact, what I thought my
Yes.
self value was defined based upon the worldly perception of what manhood was all about. So if a man can provide and protect, there's my value. So in essence, I need to be in a position where I can provide. I need to be in a position where I can protect. And if that is the case, I am now valuable. False. That is totally wrong. And it took me years to come to that understanding. So, like you, right around that 30 plus ish time frame, I started to realize not only was I already valuable, I just didn't realize my value yet. So I needed
Right.
to go back and understand what he said about me when he created me. And I've always said the thing that we do not understand, we abuse.
So
Self.
good.
We
So
abuse
good.
ourselves initially because we do not understand who we are. So until we do the necessary hard work and looking for something which was already given to us, a savior, then we will stop putting it on someone else to do the thing that he gave me the commandment to do for myself. There
Yes.
is a
You preaching.
there is a transition, right, that happens. And I talk about it from time to time. And you've probably heard if you've listened to our previous conversations. But so by all means, go back and listen to our previous conversations. So you probably heard me talk about it before, right? When we look at it from the perspective of in the Old Testament, he says, I am. Who do I say sent me? You tell them that I am that I am. Right. So you'll
Mhm.
see the term I am being expressed in the Old Testament and the Gospels. I am come that you may have life and have life more abundantly. But then there's a transition. The transition goes from I am to be. Be ye holy,
Mm.
for he is holy, right? Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Why? So that you can prove his will. So he is trying to help us understand who he is and then tell you that you are to be as he. And so he spends a great amount of time helping us to understand value first. Then he wants you to connect who you are to him because in him, you don't have to be the perfect, the perfection of value that has already existed. So under him, you can actually be the value that he has already showed you that he is. Once we grasp that, then we'll stop looking at the highlight reels. We'll stop being
Yes.
jealous of somebody else. We'll stop being so, how can we say, covetous of somebody else's
Hmm.
relationship. The relationship that we are supposed to be focused on is the relationship with him. I've said that before and I'm going to keep on saying it because, again, once we can do that, then we'll realize that the perception of self is based upon all of these other things that were not 100% accurate because none of us have what I tend to call perfect awareness. There's only one person with perfect awareness, and that's the only perfect person that ever existed. So your awareness is partial at best. So your perception of yourself is not 100% accurate. So it requires us to go back and see what he said about us. And so, if we put the time, energy, and efforts in creating that necessary relationship with Him, then we can express the value that He placed in us. And I think that's important to understand.
So I have to say, because it was one part that you said that really stuck with me. You said, when we don't know our value, you're abusing yourself. Well, is that not true? When you don't know the value of something, you'll abuse it. And we do this all the time. We lower our standards because we don't know what we truly deserve. Nobody's taught it to us, or we haven't got in the book to learn what he says that we are. Also, the mind. We have to renew our mind daily. And the mind is where it all starts at. So if we aren't renewing our minds, we will listen to what society says. I mean, to be honest, society says that I should be in an abusive relationship. I should be addicted to some type of drug. I shouldn't be a college graduate. Based on how I was raised, based on the situation that I was in as a child. But that's not true. And I was determined. I'm not somebody's statistic. That's just not me. I'm gonna show you every time. Tell me that I can't do something. That's the best and the worst thing somebody can do. It's the best thing for me, but the worst thing for them. And knowing that I have scripture to back it up, okay.
I agree. So I'm liking what Michelle Ray said. Again, good morning, good morning, everybody in the chat. Again, go ahead and get in the chat and give us your perspective. Go ahead and give us your thoughts. And again, any questions by all means, put the questions out there because we're looking forward to your questions. Michelle Ray says, filling our cup and sharing the overflow. That's the blessing. Giving you
Yes.
to others is a challenge and takes a mindset to serve. Absolutely
Mm,
correct. I agree 100%.
so
Go ahead.
good.
Go ahead. I thought you were about to say something.
That's I mean, in itself, giving you to others a challenge and a mindset. For one, you want to make sure I say this to my kids all the time and to my parents. We're sitting here, the Lord says children are gifts, right? So if you're a gift, I should bring you joy. I should not be tormenting you. It shouldn't be if you hear my name, ooh, yeah, I don't know about that one. It's the same thing. So if we're giving ourselves as a gift, it is a challenge, but the inner work has to start with us. We have to make the decision. We have to decide, you know what? We're not going to keep doing this around the robin, stuck in the wilderness for 40 years because we decide we don't want to do the work.
Right.
So do the work. So that way you know who you are, you know your self value, and you're going to value others just as much because you understood what it took for you to get here.
Absolutely. See, I want to connect the dots here because I think it's important at this point. Previously, you heard us make this conversation, and we talked about the family and how the family is supposed to be, and the family is the training ground. And in the training ground, you train a child up in the ways that they should go. In fact, if you continue to listen, you probably also heard me tell you that those ain't your kids. You're just taking care of them right now, right?
You're a
So
steward of the children. That's it.
that's it. That's all it is. So we got to get out of the mindset of my child, my child. Don't touch my child. Don't say anything to my child. Your responsibility is to train that child up in the ways that they should go. So the family unit, it should be the perfect training ground. The community, which is comprised of several family units, should be a larger training ground, a huge training ground, right? Just like we grew up and we would say that it takes a neighborhood, a community to raise a child. This is true.
Hmm.
We've gotten away from that, but again, we've gotten away from that because we got away from the family as a unit. So at that point, what we have to understand is that the responsibility of the family is to train the child up in the ways that they should go. Well, what's the way that they should go? They should go the way of the Lord. Like we point them back to Him. If we
Yes.
point them back to Him, then it doesn't make me the center of attention. So, in other words, what we have to realize relationship, because we talked about it before, the three-strand cord, the relationship of Christ in the center is the most important thing, not me, not you. And if we come to that perspective, Christ gave the ultimate sacrifice.
Yes.
Let's make sure that we understand that your ultimate sacrifice is not going to look like his, but it's going to mirror his. Christ sacrificed his life. He requires you to sacrifice your ego. So once
Mm,
you sacrifice your ego, then I don't have to be the most important person in the room. I'm not going to allow you to devalue me, though. That's the other piece. Once I understand who I am, I refuse to allow another person to devalue who I am. That's the
right.
key. You cannot erase my identity. That's a whole nother lineage of conversation. Roland, we can talk about that one later, brother.
Ooh, that's good.
You cannot erase my identity. However,
Wow.
my identity is not found in what the world say that I am. My identity is found in him. So you can sit here and devalue man all day long. I refuse to let it happen. The longer we continue to progress down that road, the worse that we're going to make it. You can sit here, and I want to make sure I get this right. You can sit here and devalue woman all you want to. Man won't let it happen. That's our responsibility to protect
Mm,
woman. That's that's scripture. So let's make sure that we're clear when we're understanding that the family unit is to raise children up in the ways that they should go. What way is that? To honor and protect the family. That's the key, right? To provide value to the family, to teach the family, to train daughters, to train sons. And
mm-hmm.
who do we point them back to? Always the father. So when we really stop and think about it, it's not the world that gives you your value. Stop looking at social media and looking at what another person is doing and looking at what they're wearing and I want to go do this. I want to go live my best life. That's all. None of that stuff matters because when you get back home, the void is still empty. That's the key. So until you get in there and do the necessary hard work that you need to do on yourself, no one, no one will ever be able to fill that void.
Listen, can we pause? I need a drink. I need to drink my water because
I'm glad you said it was water.
yes, it's water.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Michelle Ray says, so what I'm hearing
Yes.
is that all of the bad conversations and habits I obtain, I have to lose. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's the key. And here's the deal. I can't wait until somebody comes along that forces me to lose it while I'm in their presence. That becomes
Mm,
anxiety. Anxiety for who? For you, because now that person is forcing you outside of your comfort zone only because you're in their presence, not because they're trying to recreate you. Again, relationship is a training ground.
hmm
And no one ever taught me that as a child. In fact, Walt Disney told me it was the place for happily ever after. My bad. Did I just say that? I'm just being honest. You got to erase some of that. Like you said in Romans 12 and 2, you have to erase that stuff, right? Transformation. That's what it is. And so when we look at it, and Michelle, you kind of said it, the overflow, like it's your responsibility to fill your cup, not
hmm
anybody else's.
That's
I
right.
can't fill Onita's cup. Onita can't fill my cup. I can't fill Roland's cup. Roland can't fill my cup. That's not my responsibility. That's the relationship between he and the Lord. The
hmm
overflow is what he give away to his wife.
hmm
In fact, within the scope of the training ground, both of their cups need to be filled so that they can pour into their children.
There you go.
And it does not require for both mama and daddy to be in the same house. The same dynamics can present itself if we find this thing called humility. The reason
hmm
why mom and daddy can't communicate because it's all about them. Ego.
Ego. Yep.
So spot on, Michelle. And again, thank you guys for again your comments, your questions, and all that stuff because I think it just simply add value to this conversation. Um, and at this point, because this is really what we're talking about, I think it's great to
hmm
dive into the idea of belief system. So I've done too much talking so far. Let me let me kind of give it to you. And when we say belief system, what thoughts come to your mind, and how does that equate to the idea of self value?
So, like you said, we've already been talking about belief system, and it starts. as a child. Train up a child in the way they should go. But it was something else that you said. I can't let you pass that. When you said once you know, well, you said you can't erase my self value. That right there, it was a mic drop. You cannot erase my self value. And the reason why nobody can erase it is because who put it on the inside? We know who put it on the inside of you. Like you said, these are not our children. We are stewarding, okay? We are stewarding these children, and I believe in stewarding my time well. And even though I didn't learn at a young age what a relationship looked like with the Lord, I instilled it in my daughters because I didn't want them to have to go through what I was going through as a young adult. So, knowing at an early age their belief system didn't start with me per se, but the Lord, to the point where when I was going through my divorce and we weren't going to church, she was 8 at the time. She just said, "Mom, when are we going to go to church?" And this is an 8-year old. And I said, "We got to find one." And as time went, this 8-year old, who I know was the Holy Spirit, would point out as we were driving, "There's one, there's one, there's one." What can you say? This is train up a child in the way they should go. So if we're putting a strong belief system that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit is where we learn who we are, who our identity comes from, then we're not gonna get upset when our kids say, "Hey, you ain't do that, right?" Or did God tell you to do that? Because my kids, they 18, 19, they don't mind. What did the Lord tell you? And I don't get upset. It's no ego because they are teaching me and reminding me to go back to the originator, who is the source, for my confirmation, for my answer, for my guidance, for the plans. So if we know who we are as we continue to grow, there is absolutely no way anybody can erase our value because the value and the belief system, they go hand in hand. When you know who you are and whose you are and you believe that, I don't care. I'm telling you right now, coach, it ain't nobody in this world. I even had a dream the other night. I was arguing with somebody in my dream who said that I didn't deserve to be there. I
Mm,
was going toe to toe in my sleep, in my subconsciousness. So when you know who you are, whose you are, and who your center is, there is no way you can be shaken.
mm,
You might sway a little bit, but that ground you're standing on, that's solid.
mm. I love it. I agree. Um, I want to kind of add value to what you're saying because you're absolutely correct. I think because we are more senior in age than some of the younger generations out there, so we've seen the transitions that have taken place. At one particular point in time, it was all about factory and factory workers, and then for those who were factory workers, they were the ones who believed in Lean Six Sigma because that was the way of management. And so if you had green or black belt, then you were those individuals that people were looking for. And then from there, we had the .com era. And then after the .com boom hit, and then we transitioned into computers. So Lean Six Sigma, although wasn't that important anymore, but it kind of translated, and some people still look for those individuals, not as many. However, now it's an era to where it's all about computer software, it's all about programming, it's all about you know it's all about what do you call it, Python. It's all about C plus and all those things that equate to computers and maintaining and developing programs. And so back then it was all about a college degree. Now it's all about certification. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you back then believed in college education, that's great. And because you thought that took you to the top tier of the pay scale, but now it's all about certification. And these people who believe in certification no longer care about college degrees because that's not the you understand the confusion yet?
Yeah.
Like, why would you create your belief system on instability? That
Mm.
makes absolutely no
Okay.
sense to me.
Please, somebody put that in the chat.
Like,
Don't place your belief system on instability.
yeah, that
Mm.
makes no like we've seen it. We're old enough to have seen it.
Ooh.
And the unfortunate part about it is that the younger generation, they will say, well, you guys are old. It used to be that way. It's no longer that way. Like, baby, just give time, like my grandmother used to say. Just give time. You're going to realize that what's important to you right now, it's cool, but later on, it's not going to be the same. And you're going to
Hmm.
spend all your time trying to create yourself into being the perfect model of what you believe the world wants, just for the world to turn around and say, no, you're not. And then what? You're gonna feel lost. You're gonna feel empty. And it's gonna be like your life has no meaning.
Mm.
But the Bible says that He is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. That to me is stability.
Yes.
So why would you invest in instability when stability is available? That's the part I don't understand.
I'm gonna throw my phone in a second.
Please don't do it. Please, because they cost too much, right? But again, I like to make sense of things because I think at a certain point we got to pull. Like we can run around quoting scriptures, and I existed in that time frame, but I realized that's not important. What's
Mhm.
important is to take the scripture and break them down into like how can I turn this into
Right.
practicality? Why put your time, energy, and efforts into a belief system that is unstable? That has no stability in it. And that's the part that doesn't make sense. Focus your energy into something that has guaranteed you, that has literally told you, I will not leave nor forsake you.
Forsake you.
That's the point that we need to get after. So if you're not putting your energy into the Lord and going into the four facets, and I'll talk about these here in a second, of your existence, then you're missing the mark because you're literally living your life based upon the instabilities of this thing that we call emotions because your emotions is not rooted into truth. And there is only one truth. I don't care how many times you say my truth, you don't have a truth.
Mm.
There's only one truth. And not only is there only one truth, he is also the way and the light. So when we understand that, that's what we base our understanding of everything on. And he's pretty much given us the answer to every test that we're going to encounter. I like what my man rolling down the street. I love him. Right? We've made money the source of happiness and not passion and knowledge of self. Absolutely.
Mm. That's good. Oh,
Absolutely.
that's good. Because people are thinking that the more money they have, the more value they have in
Right.
themselves. And the two are not synonymous. Just
Right.
because you have a lot of money, that doesn't mean that you actually have more self value. Money is a tool, value starts on the inside.
Mm,
And we can see that, the euro, it just went down. So if we place value on money, it can be up today, down tomorrow.
absolutely.
So you don't want to put your hopes or your values in a piece of paper
Mm,
when you have the DNA of Jesus.
mm.
Like that's on the inside. That's not, but we listen, we can talk about this. I don't know if we're gonna be able to finish it all today. This is a very, very like
We never do.
we don't, but
Right.
oh man,
So
this
DNA,
is so good.
DNA, divine neurological application, right?
Mm,
So when we actually dig into it, he actually recreate. Man, don't get me started.
that's what
Listen,
I'm telling you.
listen.
Listen.
But what? But this is the thing. What Roland said is so true because when we chase a dollar, the dollar becomes our god. And as long as the dollar becomes our God, that makes us in violation of the law because thou
Yep.
shalt have no other God before thee, right? So again, we have to understand whatever thing that you are attempting to replace him with puts you in error and it will not work. It will
It
not
will
work.
not. It's
Yeah,
faulty. At its
you
core, it's faulty.
absolutely. The Lord will give provisions in turn. You have to be willing to serve him. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. It has to be a symbiotic relationship, which is in turn what a relationship is. There, can I say something real quick?
Please.
I mean, there are four things. Well, let me back up before I go there. I think it's important to understand that anything that feeds your ego, anything that feeds your emotion, has the ability to turn against you. So,
Ooh, we
so
say that one more time. One more time.
anything that feeds your ego or anything that feeds your emotion has the ability to turn against you. Your emotions are unstable. It's ebbs and flows. Your ego is unstable. It ebbs and flows. In fact, your ego feeds your emotions and vice versa. So when we have a thing, it that has the ability to turn against us, if we're in a position to where we start saying, well, if this thing, because of this thing is why I can't, or this thing is why I'm here, or she did this to me, that is what we
That
call
scapegoat excuse.
absolutely, victimhood mentality. You are not the victim of your circumstance, you are causative of your circumstance. Because of the work that you failed to do, this is the result that you get.
Hmm.
That is that is congruent in every situation that you're in. You cannot complain about, and I'm just being honest. I don't mean this in a harsh or disrespectful way. I can't complain about the job that I currently have if I didn't better myself for the job that I actually have.
There you go.
It's a requirement. I cannot complain about the relationship that I'm in if I didn't better me for that relationship. It's the same thing. It's
Hmm.
no different. So when it comes down to it, because we talked about the training ground earlier, there are some things that parents have a requirement to pass along to their children. Number one, they need to be a clear, honest representation of love,
Yes.
not like.
There you go.
Your ego would teach your children about like. Your heart for God would teach your children about love. This umbrella of love will also introduce them to the concept of trust. You,
Yes.
you don't are not required to trust man. I don't care what the world tells you. Listen to what I'm trying to tell you. If I trust Onita, I guarantee you she's gonna disappoint me.
Every time.
Guarantee. I'm gonna say it again for the people in the back. If I trust Onita, I guarantee she's gonna disappoint me. So all of this misinformation that goes around that relationship is founded in trust. No, it's not. It is not. Relationship is founded in commitment, which is what the word love is all about. Love is a
Mm,
commitment. You don't believe
huge.
me? Take a look at your child. When your child step out of line, I guarantee you accept them back every time. You
Every
don't, and
time.
it's not conditional. I know
Nope.
I think me and Roland and the fellas made joke of this one time. Chris Rock made a statement a while back. He said the only people that are entitled to unconditional love are children, dogs, and women. Men don't get it because
What?
in most cases, and he's not wrong. In most cases, it's conditional. It's based upon what we do, and if we don't do, then it fades away. That's a different conversation, right?
I'm not even.
I got you. You have to understand you may exist in a different headspace, but for a society, that's what it looks like, right? And if you listen closely, especially certain platforms, you will hear it all the time. They must
Mm,
meet this criteria. They have to make this amount of money. They have to be this height. But anyway, different conversation. So again, love is a commitment, and trust
yes.
belongs to God. That's it. We trust in the Lord. Well, wait, what about trust in a relationship? Never supposed to be a thing. It was
Mm.
never no place in the Bible where you find that it tells you to trust man. I'm,
You know what? You are absolutely correct. Um, I'm gonna have to work in that right there. What you said.
oh, we all do,
I'm and I'm being transparent because if I can't trust somebody, I don't want to be with you. I don't
right,
even want to talk to you. But it does not say that. It does not say trust a man. It does not say that. So
right.
I gotta go back and do some research. Like I gotta do some homework. So I don't want anybody out there watching thinking that, oh, they just out here talking. They don't have to
Mm-mm.
go through anything. No, I'm learning a lot of times right along with y'all, sitting here talking to Dwayne. And we talk about it and I'll say, hey, I gotta go back and I gotta look at that. Or, when you said this, it was a prick. So the fact that it does not say trust in man, we got to unlearn some things. I know me being one.
Nobody's exempt though. That's the best part about
No.
it. No one is exempt from this learning. In fact, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I knew that as a child. No, I did not. It took me years to get to that. And so
Mhm.
I started researching for myself. And I'm like, you know what? I've read this, I've read that. Then I just started searching on my own. I want to find what says trust is the foundation of a relationship. No, didn't say that. Not at all. It trust was only reserved for the Lord. So that
I
was the
have to
piece.
say this.
Go ahead.
So last week I was driving in my car, and it's probably for this conversation. And we don't rehearse these topics, none of that. But I was thinking about, it was last Sunday. I was thinking about how my kids, they are very trusting in me. If I tell them I'm gonna do something, they don't ask me 50 million times. I tell them one time, they don't ask me again. And I said, Lord, how do I get what my daughters have? How do I get that trust in you? Because they'll remind me, what did the Lord say? What did the Lord say?
Mm.
And I'm the one going back and forth like the waves at the wind. And I'm like, how do I get what they have? And I heard clearly, because you weren't able to trust your parents, it's harder for you to trust me. Like you said, it don't say that we are to trust in man, it says to trust in him, right?
Hmm.
But the enemy then switched it around. Well, if I get them to thinking trust needs to come from a man, they ain't gonna trust God. They ain't gonna trust him. So I just had to, I hope that added value. But when you said out, it just brought me back to last Sunday when I was like, I want to be like my kids. They quick to say what the Lord said. They quick to remind. Where I'm like, well, I don't know. Well, I've never broken their trust. So it's very easy for them to, well, the Lord said this, and that's what it is. Where me, I'm like, well, all these people done is because I had my trust in the wrong thing. Mm.
Well, not only did it add value, it kind of validated what was said because the reason why they trust in you because no matter what they've done, you've always received them back. You have not forsaken them.
Mm.
That's my
Okay,
point.
I want to scream right.
That's my point.
It's so good, so
So,
good.
point number three is reciprocity. A parent is supposed to teach their child reciprocity. This goes back to, and again, I always talk about this. It seems to come up once a show, by the way. I always talk about attachment theory. So attachment theory is a thing, and then adult attachment theory happens on the backside. So if, because I talk about these relationships, so the first relationship that these children experience is a relationship with their parents. For the sexes, they're opposite. So boys that relationship with their mother is forthtelling. Girls,
Mm,
that relationship with their father is forthtelling because that's their first experience with somebody of the opposite sex. So, the reciprocal relationship that exists between father and daughter and mother and son will actually translate into a relationship when they become adults. So if daddy treats his little princess like she never does any wrong, guess what she expects from her mate when she becomes an adult? For him
mm-hmm.
to treat her like she does no wrong. And
And that
oh
is
wow.
not real.
Yeah, let me get this person out of here. I don't know where that came from. Okay. So that's the key. So we have to understand we need to have, again, radical transparency, radical open mindedness. If my daughter did wrong, I need to tell her she did wrong, right? Because that helps to create resiliency. But then by that same token, I don't grill her to such a degree that she is crushed because she did wrong. I help her to understand it's okay for you to make an honest mistake. It's okay to make a miscalculated judgment, but you must be honest with yourself. Don't expect
Mm-hmm.
anybody else to sweep it under the run and under the rug and act like it didn't happen. You need to be open and honest and admit your fault. In fact, the faster you admit your fault, the faster you move on from repentance.
Yes,
So these relationships are important. Again, the training ground, if missed, will happen at a later point and it becomes more difficult as we progress. And the last
yes,
thing is intimacy. We do not teach intimacy at home. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not talking about physical touching, When I talk about intimacy, I'm talking about a depth and breadth of relationship. That relationship to where you are willing to take a risk on the other person's behalf for the sake of a more fuller and richer relationship. This is all training ground stuff. This all
Mm-hmm.
happens at home. You can't expect somebody in the street to teach your child that as an adult.
Right.
And I think that's important to understand. So when we talk about this belief system, all of this is incorporated in it. Because if we miss the mark, they're going to struggle with realizing, remember, assigned, I'm sorry, remember, assigned value, right? Realized value and express value. If we miss the mark here, they're going to struggle with realizing their value, and they're going to struggle with expressing their value because their
Mm,
value is going to be placed in what another person tells them or shows them.
exactly. Exactly.
Sorry about that. I just
Mm-hmm.
felt that was
No,
important.
no. But that goes into what you just said, the total person concept. You already broke it down for us. You just did
Yeah, but it's more. It's more.
it.
I'm sorry. It's more. Um, the total person concept requires first understanding your identity, then having a concept, then esteem, and then how you express that in society. So my identity is important. For me to have a good understanding of my identity, I first need to have a good understanding of the two people who created me. That's first and foremost. So I
Yeah.
cannot exclude one person. I think that's important to understand. I'm going to say it again, and I want to make sure that if you don't catch anything based upon what we're talking about here, catch that. A child needs both parents to have a clear understanding of who they are.
Who they are.
Anita, she gave a perfect scenario of that like months ago when she said that I needed to learn to love my daughters more than I hated their father. I
Mm-hmm.
I was touched by that statement because that is exactly what we have to do. I have to sacrifice my ego for the sake of my children. Sure, I've been hurt. Sure, I've experienced some pain. And at the end of the day, it doesn't feel good. But I cannot project my pain on my child and have them to suffer from not being associated with their other biological parent. That
Right.
helps me to understand my identity. Then, as parents, it is our responsibility to point them to the creator, the one who created them. This gives them a more clearer picture of their identity. Now they have this thing called a concept. So, the conceptual idea of who I am, the conceptual idea has absolutely nothing to do with my physical makeup. Nobody
I
cares what you look like. Nobody cares how tall you are. Nobody cares how much muscles you have. All of that is totally irrelevant. And if you create your identity over that, then as time starts to take its full effect, those things go away. When they do, who are you?
when it starts drooping in areas that you thought it was gonna stay high and lifted,
How long did it take
basically.
Abraham? How long did it take Abraham to have a baby? I'm just saying.
Okay. So I love that you said it's not outward. We have to think about what's on the inside. So if we aren't doing what we need to do internally, and I do believe that who you are internally, it'll show on the outside too.
It
Because
will.
you can look at some people, they just look just toe down, and then you start talking to them and you start hearing all the stuff that they have bottled up on the inside. And then you can look at somebody like you who, you know, you're joyful, you're joyous, you're happy, but then talking to you even off camera, you can tell there has been work done on the inside. This is not for show. This is truly for real. This is not what somebody said you are. You have been reading, you have been in the presence, you have been studying, you have a relationship, and that is exuding from the inside out. You can't, it's certain things you just can't fake that. You can try and put on all the makeup you want.
Listen,
But at the end of the day,
listen. There's a brother behind me with a How Many Children and Hard hat all the time. All the time. I am constantly assessing my thoughts. It's not just, who you see right now, oh, he's good. No, he's not. He's constantly working on self. Even
hmm
at this point, I am still working. That is a lifelong journey. You never
hmm
get to the point to where you arrive until he returns. That's just it. So we have to constantly grow, constantly grow. Oh, by the way, that's the purpose of relationship.
hmm
Relationship is a teaching ground. So, in essence, we all must humble ourselves under the umbrella of relationship. Why did Christ die on the cross? For the sake of love. So are
right,
we. We die to our understanding of who we are before we accepted Him, so that we can actually go through, as my brother Roland just said, a complete metamorphosis. Yeah, that brother was see that's how that's my dude, man. We stay in sync, right? That's what I believe it is. It's
it
that's
is.
how it works. So the total person concept takes you from the little caterpillar, puts you in the little chrysalis. That's what it's called. It's not a cocoon. In the little chrysalis, and then you come out as a butterfly. That's how it
Right.
is.
And not one butterfly looks the same.
Yeah.
Not one of us are the same. And that's the beauty in knowing He made each of us as an individual, but we all have something that we can tie back to, and that's Him, if
Hmm.
you're willing. Now, that's what is so good about it because we're all different, but we all have value, individual value, and we can bring it together in a relationship, and that value increases. So, like you were saying earlier, once you know that value, nothing can erase that. I don't care what you're going through. I'm not saying every day is going to be roses, but
Right.
when you know who you are internally,
Hmm.
the external just comes. To me, that's the overflow. So, knowing who I am internally, whose I am, who my center is, and then outwardly everybody else is benefiting from it. And I think it was Michelle who said that the challenge is to give yourself to someone else, but also or to serve them. That's the challenge, right? So if we're able to serve them in a way that they're benefiting from it, who else is going to benefit from that person receiving what you were willing to give,
Right.
from the challenge that you overcame, from the walls that you scaled, from the obstacles that you crossed over because you did the internal work. And this is who you are as a total person. It's not society, it's not money, it's not your outer appearance. It's internal. And then externally, everybody else is going to reap the benefits. And you being the number one person who's reaping the benefits from the internal work.
Man, that is so good. And really, you kind of just gave a great depiction of how that change happens as well. Because the reason why the concept is important is because it erases the external. And your entire life, watch this, your entire life, society has been making you focus on the external.
Mm-hmm.
You're too short to play basketball. You're not big enough to play football. You can't be on the cheerleading team because of whatever excuse they give you. But the concept helps us to understand that in Him I live, in Him I move, in Him I have my being. So in essence, once we get the right concept, we all look like Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Once we all look like
Absolutely.
Christ, then it's not the external value that concerns us. Sure, we take care of this thing because this is the temple, but it's the intrinsic value that really matters. It's not what a man puts in his mouth that defiles him, it's what comes out. So now what happens is we are more conscious of who we are, we're more conscious of our being. So we're not necessarily focused on action. Prior to this, what we do is we focus on doing and not being. So I
Mm-hmm.
do because I want you to grandfather me into the being based upon what I'm doing. That's
Right.
backwards. What we should be focused on is the internal person. Therefore, I do because of who I am. We we just talked about belief system, right? So the root word of belief is belief, right? So the Bible talks about believe. right? If you
Mhm.
can believe, right? And we have come up with all these different things. If you can believe, we can achieve, and all of these different affirmations. And I always tell people got to be careful with affirmations because affirmations can brainwash you into into an idea, not necessarily knowing the foundational concept that goes behind it. But I like to do wordplay because I think it's important to understand. Believe is important because in order for you to be, you must leave the place that you currently are and go where he tells you that you're supposed to be. So
Mhm.
be ye holy. Well, I'm not holy right now, but if I can believe in the Son and who he is and start adopting some of his characteristics according to the fruit of the Spirit, then I can leave where I'm at. It doesn't matter who you see, but it only matters what I believe. So you're looking
Right.
at this being, but I left this place a long time ago. My thoughts are
Mhm.
here, way out there. You're seeing this and you just met me and you're coming
Mhm.
up with this perception of who I am based upon external
Right. One
perception.
encounter.
Right. And that's not ideal. This also factors in relationship as well. You cannot make a decision based upon the person that you just met. You're making a decision based upon a shell. And the
Mhm.
shell has a mask. And the mask that the person presents you is not who they really are. Give time. As time progresses, the true nature of the person shows up. That's the person you need to believe, not the person that you met in the beginning. It doesn't matter what he or she looks like. That was their representative. When the true person shows up, that's who they really are. Now, do I want to go through this version of training? Do I want to go through this heavy lift right now? Or can we just, we just gonna be friends?
Right.
Because
Let's
you get
table this.
let's kind of come back to this at a later point, right? So the concept is important. It's extremely important because the concept becomes the lens through which you socialize. If I have a true concept of who I am, I don't need to give you a representative in the beginning. I give you my
Right.
true nature. The challenge is you don't know unless you test the spirit by the spirit.
Mhm.
So that's the challenge. So again, total personal concept is a lot. It's a heavy
Yeah.
undertaking, but it's a necessary undertaking because once you come out of that continuous cycle of emotionalized anxiety and realize that we all have PTSD to a certain degree, and that PTSD stems from relationships. I wish I had a teacup. I want to be Kermit the Frog just now. That PTSD stems from relationships. Let's just call a spade a spade. And those relationships go all the way back to when you were
Yes.
born.
Very much so.
It didn't start with Tamika or Johnny, right? The first relationship you ever no, it didn't start there. It started back then.
Mhm.
We all have PTSD. That's just what it is. It's not that they intentionally meant to harm you. It was necessary that you were afflicted because you needed
Mm.
to understand the resilient level of resiliency to get you to the other side to realize that your God is not found in a person.
You understand your resiliency when you are afflicted. Wow. And I can totally agree because there were things that I had to go through to understand just how strong I was, but I didn't know that before I went through it. But it also humbled me to know it's not my strength, but by his strength. Because when I was doing it on my own, I could only get so far. But when I really had a relationship with him, the joy of the Lord is my strength.
Hmm.
So knowing that, okay, this isn't to hurt you, this is to grow you. Because if not, you're not going to move past milk. You're not going to move past crawling. You got
Hmm.
to crawl, you got to walk, and you got to run.
Absolutely. Um, mm, I, I, I need to be conscious of the time because this can just continue to go on and on and on. But in the midst of understanding the resilient nature of our being, can you love God and trust God enough to not look at another person as your oppressor and realize that the other person that oppressed you is still a creation by the Most High? you got to
Mm.
really soak in that statement
That's
because
that's heavy.
a person is not your oppressor. It's the spirit behind the person. I
Yes.
do not take that spirit and make that spirit the person. That person was still created by the Most High. So,
Mm.
can I actually be damaged by a person that did not have the conscious awareness to realize that they were being used by that spirit, right? Can I be damaged by this person? Recognize that all things work for the good for those who love the Lord
Love
and
the
for
Lord
those
and
who
are
are called
called
according to His purpose.
according to his
Can I
purpose.
can I be offended by a person and realize that that person is not my oppressor? Number one, that that person is still a creation by the Most High, and how dare me demonize a creation that He
Mm.
created?
Mm. See that? Ooh, I hope somebody grabbed that. I'm grabbing it for myself.
Roland still dropping nuggets over there, by the way. Shout out to Roland, man. And shout out to Michelle. And,
That's
shout out to
good.
Uncle Junior. And shout out to Cassandra. You guys are just awesome. We appreciate everything you're saying in the chat. Roland said you'll
Hmm.
continue to go through things until you pass the test involved. And when you pass it, you'll be elevated and have new tests. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
true.
Absolutely. If you do not learn the spiritual lessons that you're supposed to be learning at this level, those lessons will continue to come around until you get it. Once you learn those lessons, you'll be elevated and then new lessons present themselves. That's just it. So absolutely. Key takeaways from this conversation. Your thoughts.
It's a bunch. But I'm gonna. So number one, nobody can erase your value. That right there is yes, and I'm gonna use that in my pep talks to my daughters at some point. If I feel I'm telling you right now, it's in my toolkit. No one can erase your value. Two, you cannot believe in an unstable environment or society because it will turn on you. That is another one. So put your beliefs in something that is stable, the one who is stable, the one who doesn't change today, tomorrow, or ever for that matter. And I want to say it was one more, but I don't want to mess it up. Is what you just said. It was can we look at another person, demonizing them, not understanding that it's a spirit? And how are we demonizing something that our Father created? You have to have some level of maturity to understand that. And even in that myself, I constantly have to remind myself when I'm going through things or people afflict, or I think people afflict because it's not the person, it's the spirit. What am I learning? How do I show them love instead of hate? Like it
Yeah.
says, instead of me retaliating the way I want to in my flesh, because my ego might be hurt, or I just lack the maturity to understand at that moment. No, this is not them. This is a spirit coming after you because of the spirit that's in you. So that is also homework for me. So I'll just leave it at that. Those are my top three.
No, that's
What about
awesome.
you?
I appreciate that. For me, it's I have to, I have to stay stuck on the identity thing. I think the identity is something that we don't talk enough about. I think it's important that we constantly, pay attention and be in a place of learning. And what I'm learning is about this guy. I need to learn my assigned value, and it's revealed to me progressively as I start to become mature in the understanding of my father. So, and I'm not necessarily talking about my biological father at this point. I'm 49 years old. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about my creator. So,
Mm,
the more I study his word and understand my assigned value, the more he reveals to me who I am. So,
yes.
as I understand who I am, that's called my realized value. And because I now realize that value at that level, I can express value at that level. I think it's important for me to understand just because a person may not necessarily be where I am when it comes down to the express value, they're not the enemy. They're just
Right.
not where I am. And that's okay. It's okay for them, for me to distance myself from them for said period of time because they're going through the same thing that I went through.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're further along, maybe I need to realize that, you know what, I can learn a lot from you and let me not assign a position to you because your presence in my life right now is not the position I have assigned based upon my lack of understanding of who you are. So I know I said a lot just now, but I think that's important
Mm-hmm.
because when we start focusing on our identity, understand who we are, our assigned value, realizing our value, and expressing our value, when we express value, our expressed value is always to the point of service. We
Yes.
serve, right? That's what we do. We don't seek to be served. Now, on the other side, we also have to understand I don't necessarily have to solicit service either.
That's right.
So I think that's the other part. Me understanding my value does not require me to solicit. The Holy Spirit does all that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I will attract the things that I need at my level based upon what He has assigned for me, not necessarily based upon what I want. And I think we have to have a clear understanding the difference between needs and wants. Sure, it's okay for me to have wants, but once I get emotionally tied to my wants, I miss some things that I need. And so
Mm-hmm.
when it comes down to identity, we need to focus our energy and efforts. And it doesn't really matter. We can be married, we could be single, we could be widowed, whatever. It's still a requirement for you to progressively understand who you are. Why? So that you can esteem yourself, express yourself based upon that understanding and that concept. That's key. The concept is the most important thing. Why? Because the concept is the thing that makes you put on the full armor. mm, the concept is the thing that makes you lose that worldly identity and lose
Mm-hmm.
yourself in Christ. And that's the idea to where Christ becomes the most important thing to you, even if you're married. I'm sorry,
Yes.
I hate to burst somebody's bubble, but being married is a status.
Mm-hmm.
Being married is a status. You still got the same calling.
That's right.
Be- be- So a lot of times, what people do is they wrap their mind around the worldly perception of being married. Go back
Mm-hmm.
and research. I'm not shooting down marriage. I'm actually for marriage, but I'm for putting marriage in the right perspective. Right?
Yes.
We don't change our identity. Oh, my job is to do this, or my job is to do that. I cringed one day when I heard somebody tell me that their calling is to be a wife.
Mm-mm.
Now, I'm not that person to challenge anybody's perspective on who they feel they're called to be. Again, our goal is to progress in our understanding of who we are. The more we understand who we are requires us to have a better understanding of Him because He created us in His image and in His likeness.
Yes.
So that being said, now I can express myself in that manner. I think when we do that, then it changes the way that we do things, right? That I don't want to go too heavy on that, but I also believe that it's necessary to go heavy on that from an individualized perspective. So I save the details behind that conversation for another day and for those people who pursue the deeper understanding of that. I just believe wholeheartedly that when we look at this conversation, how does your self value affect the way that you value others? You cannot give somebody you don't have. You can't give somebody something
That's
you don't
right.
have. So if I
That's
don't
right.
have a good identity or good self worth, if I don't have a good understanding of my self worth, why would you expect it for me to value you in a place that I don't exist in? We're talking about existence now. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't value myself to this degree, then you can't expect me to value you up here. It's not in me right now. It's not that it can't be, it's just not in me right now. So if that's your requirement, maybe you need to spend some time with yourself. I spend some time with all of these things are
Right.
important. Notice how this tangled web starts to come together. And so when we start interlocking and intertwining ourselves with other people, we need to understand exactly what we're doing. We're taking on two separate tribes are coming together. Your mama, your daddy, my daddy,
Right.
their mothers and their daddy, their brothers and siblings, and all of that. So this is the key. I'm only saying this because I want people to be consciously aware of what they're doing when they say I do. It's not just something
Mm,
that fly by night. It's a it is a huge undertaking. It's a commitment. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I want to be transparent. It's a commitment. Are you willing to submit yourself to another tribe? Because that's what you're doing. You're taking in all of the upbringing, all of the teaching that came through the lineage of your that person's mother, that person's father, and vice versa.
right.
Are you willing to do that? Again, I'm not shooting down marriage. I'm for marriage, but I'm for marriage the right way because what I'm
Mm-hmm.
understanding is this is why our society looks the way it looks right now. We have haphazardly joined ourselves with other people because of their external value, because they're pretty. Pretty goes out the door after hello.
Right.
I'm just being honest. Oh, because he smells good. He's as he's fine. That goes out the door after hello. What
Right.
happens after that?
I want to know what you got on the inside.
Right. Are you building? Are you teaching? Are you uplifting? If you're not doing any of that stuff, we ain't got a whole lot to talk about. And if
We
we
don't
ain't
have
got a
anything
whole
in
lot,
common.
yeah. And if we ain't got a whole lot to talk about, we got a whole lot less of anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of
It's
like my
easy. I'm just gonna say it. It's easy to lay on your back, but once you got to get up and stand on
mm,
your feet, what you got?
mm. She said it, y'all. She said it. So that's my key takeaway. I want better. And this is not, again, not an attack on anybody. I want better for our culture. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
best way to say it. And I think when we stop and slow down and look at self, because that's my sole responsibility. If I look at self, what am I doing to add value to my culture? If my answer is nothing, then I'm part of the problem.
Mm,
If my answer is something, I'm raising my children up in the ways that they should go. That's where moms and dads, that's where it starts. As they get older, they go out into the world, they be responsible, respectable adults. Hopefully, they're not devaluing somebody's son or daughter. And then now, who are you mentoring at that point? Life is not all about what you can get from other people.
mm-hmm.
And if that is the totality of your life, you need to sit down and have a long talk with self. Exclude everybody else. If you put people around you just to stroke your ego, I'm yeah, I'm off my soapbox now. I'm sorry. listen, listen. I so much enjoy these monthly conversations with you, my friend, and I so much enjoy, the
Me as
chats
well.
that are happening in the chats, man. These guys are. Look at this, man. I'm loving these guys. Rolling, man. You know you're my brother from another mother, man. Talking about all them country folks. See what I'm saying? That's why we get along so well, right? And absolutely, absolutely, we have to be better for our culture. That's what it
Mm-hmm.
is. Um, Uncle Junior, like what you said.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you again for such a great conversation, such a great topic. I'm sure our next topic will be just as enlightening. Everybody that has joined us, whether you've been in the chat or listening from a distance, I want to just stress the fact that we greatly appreciate your time, energy, and efforts. You
Yeah.
could have been doing anything else, but you chose to be here with us, and we greatly appreciate you. Again, subscribe, hit the like button, share it with other people because this is how we're giving back. This is how
Mm-hmm.
we are attempting to strengthen our culture. We just, we have a love for people, and I think you can hear that in the entirety of the conversation that we're having. So again, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, share it with everybody else. Be on CBS today at 3:30 as Georgia plays Kentucky and get this W for the day. The number one team in the nation. I got to put that out there. I would be remiss if I didn't. I'm sorry, Roland. Michigan is number two or number three. They're gonna lose to Ohio State coming up pretty soon, but that's all right. We still got love for them too. Listen, we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Have a great and wonderful day. And again, happy Thanksgiving to
Yes.
everybody, man. You
Happy
guys go
Thanksgiving.
and enjoy turkey, enjoy your family and relationships, and have meaningful conversation.
Yes.
Take a risk.
Around the table.
Yeah, take a risk for the sake of love. Venture into a conversation that can be a little risky, but it has the potential to be glorious if that conversation comes full circle. Do that and be thankful. Again, blessings to each and every one of you, and I hope you guys have a great and wonderful weekend.